right, so what the heck is Congress doing? That is a great, great question. Or rather, what are they supposed to be doing? So the job of the legislative branch is to write laws. And before something becomes an official legal law, it starts out as a bill. And there are over 9,000 bills introduced in Congress each session, so over a 2-year period. Less than 10% of them will ever become laws. If you ask me, it's because making laws requires a lot of teamwork and cooperation and open-mindedness, none of which are being exercised by our current Congress. Sorry, personal opinion. However, anyone can have the idea for a bill. So I'm going to use the, oh my goodness, Schoolhouse Rock example is in my mind, so I will use it. So someone somewhere said, you know what, it would actually be a great idea, a safe idea, if all school buses stopped at railroad tracks. So somewhere someone had that idea. Only a member of Congress, as it says right here, can actually introduce the bill to Congress. And so if I have a great idea for a bill that I would like to see become a law, I need to get in touch with a congressman, I need to contact his staffer, I need to get a lobbyist to connect me to a congressman, because only a member of Congress can introduce a bill to the legislative process. Okay, and I just said that. Hopefully that's clear now. Only a member of Congress can introduce a bill. Once a bill's idea is put into paper, if it's in the House, it goes into this big wooden box called the hopper that sits next to the Speaker of the House. I guess in Legally Blonde 2, the hopper in that movie is super pink and bedazzled. It's really boring and plain and just very woodsy in real life. Quick note. So how you label a bill. A bill always has a letter and a number. The letter tells you where it originated, and there are only 2 choices. It'll either say S or HR, and yes, you're exactly right. The S stands for Senate, HR stands for House. And then those letters will be followed by a number. And so the number tells you what bill number that is that has been introduced to Congress in that session. So if the bill is H.R. 12, you know that it originated in the House of Representatives, and it is the 12th bill to be introduced in that session. Now, because the House is so big, 435 members, and it has a lot of rules and needs a lot of structure, only the Speaker can read the bill to Congress and then assign it to the appropriate committee. There's a much less formal process in the Senate because there's fewer people, so it can be a little more laid back, and depending on the topic of the bill, it will be assigned to the appropriate committee to start working on it. In committee action, here is what happens. The first thing typically is it will be assigned to a subcommittee, and it is in that subcommittee where experts are brought in to give their opinions, their feedback, their suggestion as to what should go in the bill or the effects of the bill. And right here, this term markup, there's my cursor. Every time you see this word markup throughout the legislative process, that means that changes are being made or additions are being added to the bill. And a couple of presentations ago, I mentioned that riders are unrelated things that go into an existing bill to try to garner support of those people and get it to vote. And so if you mark up a bill, you could be changing what exists or adding things. And it's constantly changing. Bills are very fluid documents. I don't believe ever there's been a bill for the first draft got signed into law. They're always being changed. And in subcommittee, you report on the bill, meaning that you vote, and it's a simple majority. So if the subcommittee simple majority votes to have the bill continue in the process, it will go back to the full committee. And then there's more hearings, there's more markup, and then it is sent to the House or Senate floor for the official vote. I mentioned before that in the House, the debating process is limited, 30 minutes for each side, 60 minutes total, and then you must vote. In the Senate, there is not a time limit, so there is the potential, of course, to see filibuster, and then when you see a filibuster, there is potential for cloture, so hopefully all these terms are now coming together. Quorum. So there are 435 members in the House. That is a large number. Not all 435 people need to be present for a vote to take place. Instead, the number of people who need to be present is described as a quorum. And the quorum in the House is 218. That's a random number, but basically what it is it's one more than exactly half, or it is a simple majority of total members of the House. So to even have a vote, there needs to be 218 representatives, and then a simple majority vote out of that 218, or however many there are, would determine the next step. All right, when I talked about labeling, I said wherever it starts, the bill, it gets labeled with the appropriate letter. So bills need to go through the same process, everything we see here, in the House and in the Senate. So the bill is going to start in one of the two chambers. If it goes through all the steps in the House, it gets sent back over to the Senate and goes through the same exact process. And because, again, it's going to go through committees, subcommittees in both chambers, it's going to have markup sessions available. The original bill is going to look very different than probably the final draft. And because we have, for example, right now, because a Democratic-controlled Senate will be making markups to the bill, and then a Republican-controlled House will also be making markups, there's potential that the two versions that are passed might look quite different. And when that happens, it gets sent to conference committee. So as I said, floor action. Understand the different nuances between voting and debating in the House and Senate. Possible amendments can be offered up as, hey, we will vote for this if you change this part or if you add this part. Again, markup, it's getting changed, it's getting changed. And then if the House and Senate versions are different, then it moves on to the next step, conference committee. I often liken the legislative process to a board game called Chutes and Ladders. If you guys can picture Chutes and Ladders, the goal of the game is to get from start down here to end up here, the finish line. And throughout the entire journey, there are ladders and there are chutes. Take away all the ladders, and basically you have the legislative process, which is basically don't land on any of the chutes because you'll end up at square one. If I go back to committee action, any one of these, any step that we see can actually kill a bill. So if a committee just decides we're over this, we're not ever going to schedule it to even be debated, then it just, oh my gosh, did you get all that? Then it just dies and nothing ever happens. And so that is why such a small percentage of bills actually become laws. So in conference committee action, this is where, and this key word here that we're taught in kindergarten, compromise. Nope, that says comprise. They need to compromise to comprise a bill to iron out differences, which is why right now the legislative process is so stagnant, because we are talking about gathering members from the House and the Senate, and typically these are members who were in the original committees where the bill was assigned at the beginning, have to work together. They have to compromise, they have to cooperate so that they can create a final bill that will be presented to the president. When both members of the House and the Senate work together in the conference committee and come up with one final draft, the bill moves back to the full House, the full Senate, and then there's a simple up or down vote, meaning that you can't say, well, I will vote for it if it's either yay or nay. And if a majority votes yay, then the bill moves to the president. All right. Once a bill is placed on the president's desk, there are a couple different directions that the bill can go. So the first, and I guess the most straightforward, is if the president signs the bill, it becomes law. When a president does sign a bill, it's actually kind of a pretty ceremonial deal. He typically will do it in the Oval Office, and there'll be a bunch of media and press there, guests who are somehow related to the topic of the bill. Sometimes he will sign them outside. I remember when was that Reagan, I believe, signed Martin Luther King Jr. Day as an official federal holiday. That actually was done in the Rose Garden, in the backyard of the White House. The surviving member of the King's family were invited, and it was, again, kind of like a ceremonial thing. All right, so if that happens, great. Yay, we have a law. Okay. If the bill is put on the president's desk and the president does not take action and Congress is in session for 10 days, it becomes a law, okay? So Congress must wait 10 days, meeting in 10 days, the president ignores the bill, it still becomes a law, okay? Now, if in that 10-day period, or if before Congress can meet for 10 days in a row, I just explained that really poorly. Okay, let's talk about a pocket veto. A pocket veto is when Congress does nothing, but there are fewer than 10 days remaining in a current session of Congress. Okay, so for example, let's say that Congress has voted to take the entire month of December off for holiday, for Christmas, whatever, because they worked oh so hard, and they are going to meet back on January 1st. So November 30th is their last day where they're in session. If on November 28th a bill is placed on the president's desk, there is no way that Congress is going to stay in session for 10 days after that. So it becomes what's known as a pocket veto. And a pocket veto is sort of, it's twofold. It's either the president sort of being a little more passive aggressive with rejecting a bill, or it's Congress not having their stuff together and not using good time management skills. So a pocket veto is a little more passive aggressive because a president can always, like it says right here, just veto a law or just veto a bill and say, no, this is not going to become a law. Where a pocket veto sort of puts the pressure, the heat back on Congress and says, all right, Congress, I'm not going to do anything with this bill. I'm just going to ignore it, put it in my back pocket, hence the name. And if you decide to stay in Congress for 10 more days, then it will become a law. And so it's sort of not vetoing, but it's not approving. It's making Congress work a little bit harder. I guess the powerful element of a pocket veto is that Congress cannot override a pocket veto, but if a president just straight up vetoes a bill, Congress does have a chance to override the veto per our system of checks and balances. And if 2/3 vote in both houses agree to override the veto, then it is a law. And I had another really important thought for you. Let's see. Oh, so why would a president use a pocket veto? Again, it's I guess the example I give is if you are constantly asking someone for something, permission or favor, and you're getting told no, 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 at some point you're going to start to see that person as a bully, as uncooperative, maybe even a little tyrannical. And so if a president maybe does not want to come across that way, a pocket veto is a less aggressive, less direct way to still kind of try to get the same point across. Andrew Johnson, who succeeded Lincoln, he actually vetoed over 700 bills that were put before him while he was president. And so that's over 700 times where the same Congress, or pretty much the same Congress, was told no every single time they were asking for something. That would be really frustrating. Most teenagers get pissed if they are told no once, and imagine being told no over 700 times. And so it was actually that reason for which Andrew Johnson was impeached for abuse of power. But anyways, different story, but same outcome. So again, can sign the bill into law, can wait 10 days, not do anything, Congress still meets, and it becomes a law. Pocket veto, Congress does not stay in session for those 10 days. And then a veto, but a veto can be overridden.
It's grown in southern ground and a little bit of chicken fried. Cold beer on a Friday night, a pair of jeans that fit just right, and the radio, I like to see the sunrise, see the love in my woman's eyes, feel the touch of a precious child, and know a mother's love. It's funny how it's a little